Very good. So, Shannon, let's get started with you. And then I'm interested in Josh and Sahar, your answers to this as well. So, federal buyers are under pressure to move faster and prove mission outcomes faster. How has that changed the way successful selling professionals need to engage with customers today? So, Shannon, why don't you get started?
Sure, absolutely. So really what I would start with is really the days of, 18-month plus sales cycles are really over. I think many of us understand and see that on a daily basis. So what does that mean? That customers want to know one thing, and that really is how fast can you help them show results? So successful sellers really need to think about shifting from leading with really kind of traditional product capabilities and really leaning in on what the mission is and working backwards to understand what those mission outcomes are. So you should really need to walk away knowing their pain points. You need to understand their time pressures, how they think about their acquisition constraints. And the winning motion is really how you demonstrate that you understand the mission. You show relevant proof points and how you've delivered for similar missions. And really that compresses that time to value. So what I see is if you really can't articulate those outcomes in that first conversation, you're really already behind. And I would also say we're seeing a lot of trends with federal buyers that are looking when they're looking to the partner community to help them solve these mission outcomes, that they are repeatable and scalable. And they're also looking for different acquisition approaches. So, traditional acquisition cycles are really focusing on here are the requirements, here are your SLAs. But what we're seeing is clearly the government's looking for partners to help support them on shared based risk as well as shared based outcomes. So I would just wrap it up, Fred, to really say again, if you're walking in and doing the traditional, let me talk about my products, let me talk about what these services or our capabilities bring, you're really already behind. It has to start with what is the mission, what are they trying to solve for, and then how can you bring together proof points, solutions, and repeatable capabilities.
Let's talk a lot about the ecosystem. So we hear a lot about ecosystem selling. What does effective partner collaboration really look like in practice between AWS, Carahsoft, SIs, VARs, ISVs, and niche specialists? Sahar, why don't you take it first as we move Shannon onto the screen?
Yes, absolutely. So, I'd start out with just saying, ecosystem selling isn't a buzzword for us. It's actually, and you've heard some of the other panelists just talk about it, how deals really actually get done. So in practice, we think about effective collaboration, which means each partner has necessarily their core competency, and they're not working off of that in bifurcated approaches. So if you think about it, AWS obviously brings the platform and programs in our regions like GovCloud and, of course, AWS Marketplace. You have Carahsoft, right, bring in the distribution, bring in procurement vehicle access, deal mechanisms, expertise. We have our SIs that bring integration capabilities and obviously many of the customer relationships and many of our ISV and our defense ISVs that are bringing really differentiated IP at speed. So the magic really happens when everybody is aligned on what, again, I'll be repeating this throughout this session, the customer's mission outcome. So it's not just seeing their piece of the revenue. So again, the best deals I've seen are ones where partners co-invest early, share intelligence. We're building joint solutions way before an RFP drops. And if you're showing up when there's a contract to chase, you're too late. And you're seeing a lot of these trends really, especially with some of the newer defense companies like the Angels of the world that are coming forward and taking a commercial perspective by getting investments up front and developing solutions and capabilities and products way before an RFX is even thought of. So AWS partner ecosystems, again, we kind of operate as a layered go-to-market. It's a model design to really deliver complete solutions, as I said, to customers. And again, particularly in public sector these days. And really at the center is, AWS, again, providing that cloud platform, the framework, and programs like AWS Marketplace and the ISV Accelerate programs that are really creating structured pathways for partners to co-sell. The model really works because AWS incentivize collaboration through co-sell, through credits, joint funding like the Migration Acceleration Program, Partner Opportunity Acceleration Funds, and there's shared pipeline visibility, with our ACE, which is again an APM customer engagements. So when all this functions well, each partner is really activated based on their unique value. That intelligence really flows freely across the ecosystem. And again, the customer receives an integrated outcome rather than a collection of disconnected vendor approaches.
Shannon, you manage a lot of people. You've managed a lot of people in your career. You've worked with, I don't know, thousands of partners by this point. Same question, how should the selling professionals underneath you in AWS and in the channel and at Carasoft, how should they be showing the customer that they have what Josh just described?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're learning every day because as customer needs change and their requirements change, you have to be adaptable as a seller. And what you did five minutes ago, sometimes you have to pivot. And so, it's really a fundamental shift and I look at this as separating good sellers to great ones. So stop talking about what technology does, and you want to really start talking about, again, what it enables. So instead of we offer a container orchestration platform as an example, say we helped agency X or customer X reduce their deployment cycles from 6 months to 2 weeks, which meant what was the outcome? That the warfighter got updated capabilities in the field faster. So every conversation should answer 3 questions for the buyer. What mission problem does it solve? How fast will I see results? And what evidence it works? And if you pitch a deck that still leads with architecture diagram, again, you need to rethink your approach. I would also say I see a lot that we tend to navigate to our champion, right? That's in our customer. Or we navigate to the influencer. But you have to step back and look at truly the anatomy of selling. And that is not just your influencer. It's not just your champion, but it's obviously the decision maker. But those decision makers are reliant heavily on those influencers. You have to really know the economic buyer. We talked a lot about that and some of the massive changes and acquisition and procurement. And you really have to understand clearly the technical buyers. And I see a lot of sellers make that mistake, and you get all the way down the path because you got your champion, you got your influencer, your financial buyer, is saying, yeah, we've got budgets for it, but it halts at acquisition or procurement because you didn't have the relationship, you didn't understand how to navigate that deal. The other thing I'll share with you by putting this into play, I'll give you a real example. We worked with a major defense contractor who was building some mission critical defense systems, and their deployment teams were stuck in a cycle where test environments took 4 months to build. And were actually not even updated. They were updated infrequently. So think about what that means to, again, the men and women in theater. Every delay in testing and every delay in getting updated capabilities to field could be catastrophic. So we helped this defense contractor by moving to a cloud-based DevOps approach on AWS, GovCloud. They compressed their 4-month cycle to 15 minutes. So that's not just a story about containers or infrastructure as code or any particular architecture. It's a story about how the developers working on national defense systems can now address hundreds of items in a window in time that used to take months to get done. So the mission outcome was that the warfighter gets better software faster, vulnerabilities get patched sooner, and new capabilities reach the field in weeks instead of being stuck in years-long development queues. So when I see sellers lead with the framing, we helped this defense industrial-based partner go from 4 months to 15 minutes in test cycles, which means warfighters get updated capabilities faster as doors open. And when they lead with, we offer elastic compute with onboarding, on-demand provisioning, that's when you really get the aha moments. So technology completely is very different in that conversation. So, Brad, that's how I'd wrap it up. That's a real example of what I mean from changing the narrative when you walk in to not just talking about your single technology.
How do great selling professionals balance personal credibility and technical and mission credibility. So I just like for you, I know you need to depart here after this, give us your 3 tips for specific things you want selling professionals to be doing to be as effective as possible right now.
Absolutely. I appreciate this question because it's so important. And, we here at Amazon, we have many leadership principles. And one of the most meaningful one to me is earning trust. And so the best sellers I see don't choose between relationships and expertise. They use relationships to deliver expertise faster. So your personal credibility can get you the meeting. Your technical and mission credibility keeps you in the room. And the balance is invest in relationships to really earn trust, then leverage that trust to bring in the right technical resources at the right time. So don't always try to be that expert on everything. Now, I know clearly with many of our AI capabilities, that can help make you experts faster, but still the human element, bringing humanity still into the AI world is still very important. So be the person who knows exactly also who to bring in the table, but also when. And don't just be a facilitator because you're going to lose trust there. You still have to have that level 100, 200 depth, again, to earn that credibility and trust. So the orchestration skill, knowing your ecosystem and deploying it effectively, is what separates trusted advisors from transactional sellers. I can't tell you how many times I've seen very large deals lost. The feedback given from many of our partners, whether they're our large global partners, our SIs, our small businesses, is don't treat us transactional. It's very important. You're in it for the long game. And I know sometimes as sellers, we're very motivated by our monthly quotas and our targets, but you have to be in it for the long game to really win those true strategic deals. So I'll share a story, Fred, if that's okay, because I think it's a great story. It really amplifies my message. So when AWS pursued, many of you know, what became the CIA's C2S Commercial Cloud Services contract, which was at the time over a $600 million deal to build a private cloud for over about 17 intelligence community agencies. It didn't start with a technical pitch. The leadership and the team at the time spent years building relationships within the intelligence community. They understood their mission frustrations, the analysts waiting days for compute resources to run queries, and agencies unable to share intelligence across classification boundaries, and innovation that was bottlenecked by procurement cycles. The relationship building earned the initial meeting. But what kept AWS in the room was the ability to orchestrate. So when the CIA's technical evaluators, asked those hard questions about things like air gap security, a top secret, or our sellers didn't try to answer everything themselves. They brought in the right solution architects. They had the right security engineers, the compliance specialists who could speak also the agency's language. They had the depth of the mission, and they could prove the architecture could work. So the CIA's own evaluation, concluded at every layer. So here's the lesson why I share that story. The account team's personal credibility, again, opened the door, but it took time. It took time learning. It took time earning the trust. It took time spending and understanding the most critical frustration points. Their orchestration skills, knowing exactly, again, who to bring in across the AWS and the partner ecosystem, again, goes back to my opening comment, know those partners' core competencies is what won the deal fundamentally. And this changed how the US government thought about cloud and really set the path we are on today. So the same pattern plays out in smaller scale every week. Again, I see our best sellers walk into a customer meeting, quickly recognize the conversation is heading towards a compliance challenge or specific workload migration issues, and immediately say, let's work backwards from the problem. Let's give some proof points of outcomes that we've done to help solve similar problems, and follow up immediately with, again, bringing in the right expertise who lives and breathes this every day. They don't lose credibility by admitting that they're not the expert on everything. They actually gain credibility by proving they have the access to the right expertise and can deploy it within days and not weeks.